I'm back again. Sorry, shut off time limit, but we're going to finish this. Okay? So, as I said a moment ago, these behaviors can be built into the nervous system through habit formation and last a lifetime. Real interesting. You can't necessarily get that with classical conditioning. Now, I want you to keep in mind here, we're not talking about salivary gland. We're talking about other organs in the body that respond to stimuli in the environment that can actually produce some strength in that autonomic nervous system based response system, which, by the way, could be any organ in the body, any organ that is supported by the autonomic nervous system. Okay? Yeah. If it's an autonomic nervous system organ function, classical conditioning is appropriate to produce changes in the function of that organ system. The problem is, for me and for a lot of my colleagues, is that whatever we can train through the autonomic nervous system in terms of changes in organ system function, it weakens and it pretty much extinguishes over a relatively short period of time. That doesn't. Which leads one to believe in psychosomatic medicine and in those conditions here where psychology overlaps medicine, we're looking at psychological forces that actually produce sometimes lifelong changes in organ function that defy change. Remember, I'm not sure how to treat them, right? Go to your physician, okay? And sometimes shrinks may produce a change, sometimes they don't, okay? But my point is this, what are the processes involved in therapy that alter this, whatever it is? Okay, more importantly, I want to try to talk about some empirically based evidence that would suggest that what we're actually looking at is the operant conditioning of organs that are supported by the autonomic nervous system, which, by the way, works great here, but nobody really tried to operantly control organ system function since the Greeks. You can't do it. It's in the textbook that we just read in the first year of medical school or in pre-med. It's fixed, stuck, and ain't going to change like the pigeon in the Skinner box. So when you come out of that preset notion that the autonomic nervous system supported organ systems are impervious to this kind of learning, you get American medicine, you get medicine, an attitude throughout the medical community now that you ain't going to train any organ system to behave differently because, it can't happen. It cannot. You're not wired that way. Well, hold on. Okay? What we've been finding since the mid-60s now, 67, 68, 69, straight up, is that indeed you can. You can actually train organ systems that no one ever thought you could train using operant conditioning, and that is you can actually, the organ system produces the response and it is reinforced for that response. Like what? Well, I want you to take a look at those earlier videos that I discussed with you and some of the early work that came out of this field in biofeedback and self-control. And you'll see evidence of this movement continuing in research that is still being published widely in a variety of journals. The work goes on, and the important thing is that we are capable here of demonstrating perhaps something that nobody ever thought could occur. And that is that organ systems can learn how to get screwed up as a consequence of their behavior in the environment, and it becomes so well ingrained in the organ that it develops that habit pattern, just like you develop habit patterns. Now remember, if you didn't learn, if the nervous system could not undergo modification, it was stuck in place, you'd never learn anything. So you have a highly malleable and adaptive brain and nervous system that allows you to create a variety of behaviors, okay? You have to have that. It's all part of living, get it? Remember, at the end of each one of those nerves is an organ. And if you can actually measure the activity of that organ and feed it back to the individual that is actually whose organ it is, ding, 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 ding. Oh, I think I can actually control that myself. If I can amplify the processes and hear it, I need feedback. Once I get feedback, like my fingers, I can feel the sensations, I can move my fingers. If I can get the same kind of feedback from that organ, what can I do with it? And that's what we have begun to do since the 70s. Hold on just a second. We're looking at a field here that is rich with potential and very exciting. If we can actually dial in on the function of the organ and feed it back to the individual so that he can hear it and sense it visually, see it on the display, or hear it. I see how I can actually manipulate that. Sensory feedback from the organ itself gives the individual an ability to actually manipulate that organ, like you do your hands, like the pigeon does in walking to the food dispenser. That is what behavioral medicine in that area of behavioral medicine is all about. And that is the learned control of organ system function, and a degree to which we can actually train organs to behave differently. Why do we want to do that? Because we're looking at a dysfunctional organ in front of us here with no explanation of how it arrived there in that state. Except, now wait, we trained it. We actually trained our organ system to screw itself up. How did we do that? That is another interesting chapter, okay? But I want you to get an idea of why this is so important, that individuals can actually learn to be healthy and learn how to be unhealthy. And in this case, we're producing such unhealthy behavior, training our nervous systems and organ systems to behave so poorly that they begin to show up as dysfunctioning organs. pretty interesting. Now, I'm sure you're all going to have a lot of questions about this. Hope it isn't too deep. Is anybody still awake out there? I don't know. It grabbed my attention when I was a student. I don't know if it's put you to sleep, but it's worth considering. In my seminars that I'm going to be holding here, for those of you who may well be coming into some of my treatment programs and clinical trials, I have orientation meetings, and if you'd like to join me in that, I'll spend more time putting you to sleep in those orientation meetings. Now I do my subject, I do my patient, and I try to explain this to my patients, and oh Jesus, wait a minute, wake up, this is important. Anyway, we are on a course here that I think can be very valuable. I've been treating psychosomatic patients for close to 40 years now. And if you know how to set up a behavior modification program for them and the disorder that they have, you have the greatest likelihood of producing a success in treatment and a reversal of that condition. Okay, that's what brought a lot of people into this field as researchers originally, and then clinicians that are being trained to this day in this field, okay? Okay, thanks very much for listening, and we will proceed. Follow me to the next lecture, okay? Thanks.